It's the worst of the CBC for November 16th, 2020, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. All right, it's obvious what the biggest omission is today. I mean, the Great Reset, Grand Awakening, New World Order, whatever you want to call it, trending on Twitter, where the Prime Minister literally said he wants to remake the entire economic system because of COVID. How many seconds of coverage on the national news media? You guessed it, 0. But still, I'm actually doing something different. This isn't the worst coverage story. I'm going to tell you about the best coverage story of the day, because I was just so blown away. Okay, there was a story on the CBC, the National, about COVID-19 in the South Asian community. And by golly, they actually did a good job on that. And I have to tell you guys about it. And we're going to get into the Justin Trudeau stuff. But first I'm going to mention, they talked about the higher rates of COVID in the South Asian community. They did not blame it on racism. They actually said South Asians have different cultures. They mentioned the fact that there's multiple different levels of family living in the same house, grandparents, children. It puts them at higher risk. It also said there's higher risk because of their religious Diwali festivals coming together. And then the people they interviewed on behalf of the South Asian community were actually doctors and leaders of the South Asian community. The organizations they showed were not Khalistanis, and they were not Muslim Brotherhood, and they were not Jamaat-e-Islami. They were actually regular people, which is the majority of South Asian communities. They were not being portrayed as, like, we didn't just say, oh, Khalistani terrorist. What do you have to say as the representative for all brown people everywhere? That didn't happen. I was blown away. So good job, CBC, actually acknowledging some reality and doing a good job there. Now, obviously, worst cover story, biggest omission. Okay, the Prime Minister went in front of the country and said, the good thing about COVID-19 is that it gives us a chance for a reset and to find new economic systems to better meet the UN 2030 agenda. Okay? Now, I've done videos, I think everyone's done videos on sort of like the UN and these 2030 agendas and sustainable development goals and how they undermine national sovereignty and how, and I don't grow as exponentially quickly as other channels because I try not to take crazy positions, let's say, or ones that I can't justify. Like, I have tons of doubts about how COVID is being sort of thrust down upon us and the technocrats running the sort of COVID show, okay, and let's just declare Dr. Theresa Tam Queen of Canada because she could just do whatever she wants, off with your head, okay? But I also don't think that vaccines are like the enemy, okay? I've never been an anti-vaxxer. So I try and balance to what the actual conspiracy is here. And when we talk about like it's not even a conspiracy anymore, like the global plan to basically change our economic system, right? I try and represent it as not the elites. See, they've been planning this and everyone in the CBC is in on it, blah, blah, blah. I try and make the point of, okay, how does this happen? And it probably happens because the people at the CBC, the people inside the government, it's not that they are 100%, in the Bilderberg beating groups, getting the orders from George Soros, 100% down to remake our economy, create some sort of, trans-socialist nonsense, right? They probably just believe it at a, 5, maybe 10% clip each personally. Just a little bit of, okay, it's just a little bit of part of them that, if we did have this sort of global technocracy, maybe, Donald Trump wouldn't happen, and maybe things would be better if, like, the scientists got to tell us what to do instead of like the people. Like, I get it, something, but like that might just be a little bit part of them, and then because a little bit of part of them, right, that just builds up as you multiply it over the group. And that's how you get this sort of horde mentality where they'll stick their head in the sand when the Prime Minister literally comes out and says, like, the Great Reset theory, the Great Reset, what was a conspiracy theory 2 days ago, although with proof of this one, now it's Canadian policy. Okay, so let's go into what he said, all right? I've been told by some people that it's distasteful to look on the bright side of COVID while people are dying. But Justin Trudeau shares no such worries. The good side is we can reset the economy. Now, how does this not make it onto the news? You would think the fact that we are talking about changing Canada's entire economic system would get some coverage. You think is that a little bit of a deal? Like, what percent of a deal is that? The fact that we're just going to change from a free market capitalist system to a new one. That's not even worth covering. Finding new economic theories to give into the UN's 2030 agenda, like that, Canadians never voted on that. Okay, that's globalism. Okay, this is when I talk about, globalism, and I don't just shout this term. I always define it. Globalism is the, subjugation, or like the circumvention of national sovereignty through global institutions. This would be the UN dictating laws in your country. No taxation without representation. Essentially, globalism. This is the most blatant, evil globalist thing. So Justin Trudeau said he wants to find a new economic system to find with these sustainable developments. Now, I don't want to get fact-checked by the fact-checkers here, right? Got to keep this 100% factual. So does that mean he wants a communist or socialist, system? No, it doesn't 100% mean that. It means he wants to get rid of the capitalist system. Maybe he wants to replace it with something even more capitalist. A total, make Singapore and Hong Kong look like a bunch of commie hellholes and just deregulate everything, a libertarian paradise. Maybe he's talking about a hyper-libertarian paradise. Maybe. Considering the goals of the UN's 2030 agenda, I would say very likely not. Very likely his new economic system will be even harsher on Canada's energy sector. It's very reasonable that his new economic system probably will, not have the most democratic appeal to the people in Canada. It's not a nationalist agenda. It doesn't deal with Canadian sovereignty. It is very likely that it's some sort of global, either technocratic bureaucracy or socialist nonsense. These are the two most likely things. He didn't say he wants to turn Canada into a socialist, technocratic, international, whatever. He just wants to say he wants to fundamentally change the economy of Canada because of COVID. That's all he said. And of course, this isn't worth covering in the news. It's not worth covering. How could changing Canada's entire economic system be newsworthy? Right? That just happens every Tuesday, right? I remember last week when we were a communist country, and then, this week we're a capitalist country, and then next week will be like a socialist, quasi-socialist thing, then we'll go to mixed markets. It's just Tuesdays. Am I right, folks? Just always changing the Canadian economic system. So I don't even know what to grade them, because I was just so blown away that South Asian COVID story was actually well done, and when it had every right not to be. So I'm going to forego the Rosemary Barden scale today. Just go absolutely ballistic that they didn't mention the fact that the Prime Minister now wants to change the entire country's economic system to basically be a globalist technocracy. And then be like, but they actually kind of cover that South Asian thing kind of good, and Daniel didn't have to yell about Calistanis for 10 minutes, so I guess he's happy. And then make your own Rosemary Barden scale. So you know what? You in the comments section, you decide what this episode gets on the scale of 1 to 10 Rosemary Bardens, and I'll see you tomorrow.